And I was in a bar in San Francisco on my 30th birthday, doing what a lot of guys do on their 30th birthday. And at midnight, I told my buddies I was leaving, and they said, where are you going? It's midnight. It's your 30th birthday. Let's have another round of tequila to celebrate. And I said, no, I'm going to run 30 miles right now to celebrate instead. And they looked at me and they said, but you're not a runner. You're drunk. And I said, yeah, I am drunk, but I'm still going to do it.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast with Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
Today, Joe's celebrating running with Dean Karnazes, author of Run, Ultramarathon Man, and the new book, A Runner's High. Find out what drives him to run, his advice for getting started, for nutrition, and the best time of day to get your run in. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by the Exogen ultrasound bone healing system. If you or a loved one has a broken bone, talk to your doctor about Exogen. Exogen is indicated for the healing of non-union fractures and for accelerating the healing of certain acute fractures with no contraindications. To learn more, visit exogen.com. EXOGEN.com.
Dean Karnazes here on Spartan Up podcast. I'm Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan, and we got this podcast because we're trying to give you some information and rip you the hell off the couch. So Dean, who runs everywhere, doesn't have a car. Is that true, by the way?
For 10 years, I haven't had one.
Save a lot of money?
Yeah, it's and I get a lot of extra exercise. Anytime I want to get something to eat, I got to run there.
What about your family?
Or I got to catch it with my hands, Joe. I got to run it down.
What about your family? How do they feel about it?
My kids think I'm weird, but I think they're I had a sponsorship by Volkswagen, and I was never driving the car, and I thought it was pretty fraudulent. I didn't feel very authentic that they were giving me this car, so I gave it back to them. And my agent said, "Look, you're crazy. Look at this paycheck." And I'm like, I can't sleep at night. So haven't had a car for about 10 years.
Why? One of the things you could have did, Dean, was take the engine out of the car and just push it everywhere.
I could have just opened up the floorboard like Fred Flintstone and just put my legs below and run it everywhere.
Tell me about this new book. Everybody, Dean wrote A Runner's High. He sent it to me. The book is awesome. And I get a runner's high, and you run in high places. I guess it was a double entendre? Is that what they call it?
I think so. Yeah, I came up with that title myself. And, I'm kind of a philosopher when it comes to running, more so than a, competitive athlete anymore. I still love running ultramarathons and everything, but I like capturing the stories and putting them down for others to read. I mean, I'm Greek, and Greeks are storytellers, starting with Homer. So it's a kind of an epic storyline.
You're not only Greek, you're a Spartan.
It says it right here on my shirt,
That's right.
baby.
That's right. and you weren't always a runner.
Well, Joe, I used to love to run home from kindergarten when I was 6 years old. And I ran competitively in high school as a freshman. We won the state cross-country championships. And then I decided running was boring. I kind of was over running. And then I went to college. I went to grad school. I went to business school. And I was in a bar in San Francisco on my 30th birthday, doing what a lot of guys do on their 30th birthday. And at midnight, I told my buddies I was leaving. And they said, where are you going? It's midnight. It's your 30th birthday. Let's have another round of tequila to celebrate. And I said, no, I'm going to run 30 miles right now to celebrate instead. And they looked at me and they said, but you're not a runner. You're drunk. And I said, yeah, I am drunk, but I'm still going to do it. And I'll never forget, I walked out of the bar, and I didn't even own running gear, but I had these these comfortable silk boxer shorts on, these silk underwear. So I just peeled off my pants, threw them down the alleyway, and just started running south, in my underwear, drunk.
And you never stopped?
Well, I knew there was a town called the Half Moon Bay that was 30 miles away, and that night I said, run to Half Moon Bay. And I mean, it took me almost 8 hours to run 30 miles. So it wasn't the fastest run ever, but I ran all night, and that night kind of changed the course of my life.
And so that's your big thing. I mean, you're trying to get folks to understand the power of running.
Yeah, I think the book speaks to that quite a bit. It speaks to the why we run, and it's not an easy answer, right? It's kind of a complex answer, even though running is such a simple act. There's a lot going on there. I always kid my dad, who's a big golfer, like, Dad, all you're doing is you're hitting a white ball with a stick, with a club. And he's like, no, there's a lot more going on than that. And I think the same holds true with running.
I know I get to meet myself when I run and do these obstacle races, do tough stuff. You inspired me, and I've done some crazy runs, and it really is, every one of them is life-changing. And by the way, it doesn't matter what the weather is outside. Like, it just doesn't matter. And by the way, I don't think there's been ever a bad run except for the one you don't do.
I agree. I mean, I don't think there's been one time I've come back through the door after a run being worse off than before I started. Universally. I mean, even when I'm sick, I go running. I still feel a lot better when I get back. And running, it holds a mirror up to you like no other sport, as you just said. You confront yourself like nothing else, because it tests your limitations and your resolve and your grit. And I've seen you, Joe. I mean, I love the hell out of you. I mean, I've seen you show up at the start of 50-mile races, with kind of your posse of folks you're dragging out there, and you guys are just going to tough it out. I'm like, Joe, when have you been training for 50-miler? And I know your lifestyle. I mean, I know how you live. You're the CEO of a big company, and you're just going, full throttle the whole time. And you show up at the start at 5 a.m. and you damn well get it done. It might take you, 12 or 13 hours, but I love that. I really admire that.
I've bumped into you with my kids at marathons. We've bumped into each other all over. Hey, Joe, what are you doing here? Hey, Dean, what are you doing? Well, you usually respond and say, this is what I do for a living. And I usually respond and say, I'm trying to get away from what I do for a living. So
I don't know how you do it, but one of these days I want you to send your kids off to me and let them stay with me for a while, because I certainly miss kids around the household, and I bet yours are some of the better
I would
ones.
love to send you my kids, even this summer. If you want them for a week, you could definitely take them. I came up with a crazy idea for this summer. I'm sending them for 2 weeks to Europe. There's the two boys, because they're older than the girls, the two girls. And they're going to land in the UK. And I've got a few military folks that are going to kind of shadow them to make sure they actually return home. And they're going to go check out all the cool sites and work their way across Europe. And I'm going to meet them in Italy 2 weeks later.
You guys got to make it to Greece. Come on.
Yeah, they'll go to Sparta, of course. Give the folks out there, Dean, some advice. Most of the planet, certainly our country, is stuck on the couch. They're just stuck. They're stuck to their devices. They forget about running. They don't even walk anywhere anymore. Give us some advice how we get moving.
To me, it's you create the platform. If you build it, they will run. Kind of like with Spartan Trail. I mean, you give them a reason to run, and then you push them into it. Once you hit register, on that website, you're kind of in, right? You got a date that's creeping up on you. So I always really encourage people, just go online if it's 6 months down the road, or 9 months if you're not in good shape, and enter it. And then you got some accountability. But the other thing is, keep doing things like this podcast. Keep evangelizing the benefits of running and exercise and healthy living, and keep spreading the gospel. We know that communities are big influences on individuals, both good and bad. So we need to break through. And certainly, like my writing, I know I've done that in quite a big way, because my writing is very approachable, and it's not a prescription book. It doesn't say, hey, you got to go do this workout on this day. You got to do this on this day. It pretty much is just an inspirational story that can motivate people. So keep telling stories.
Stories. Forget the movie, The Lost Boys, was it? So there's a movie that kind of reenacts a bit what went on in Sudan. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, where you see some of these cultures that don't have TVs and access to all the things that we have access to here, and they literally would just pass on, to your point, these stories, and it keeps everything together as far as the generations before them and their family. And I guess we're losing some of that, right, with the internet. Now we just look at YouTube and TikTok.
Yeah, thankfully I know when to shut it off because I'm just as guilty as the next guy. I mean, it's become a kind of a demon. You get this social media following, and I open that thing up, and there's 800 messages. I'm like, give me a break. And you just feel your pulse racing when you see this. And at a point, I just put it all down and just go running. And when I run, I just tune out. I don't listen to anything except the beating of my heart.
What's the best time to run? If somebody wants to take up running and maybe they just want to do a half a mile a day or a mile, what's the best time of day for them to run?
We'll be right back to this interview. But first, a little bit of information from Exogen, today's sponsor. Spartans, a broken bone can interrupt your daily activities and, even worse, keep you on the sidelines. Choosing the best treatment can be stressful. You can jumpstart your bone's natural healing process using Exogen 20 minutes a day. Exogen helps you get back in the race. Don't let a broken bone keep you on the sidelines. Talk to your doctor to see if Exogen is right for you. Exogen is indicated for the healing of non-union fractures and for accelerating the healing of certain acute fractures with no known contraindications. To learn more, visit exogen.com. That is EXOGEN.com. And now back to the interview.
What's the best time to run? If somebody wants to take up running and maybe they just want to do a half a mile a day or a mile, what's the best time of day for them to run?
Say, listen to everyone, follow no one. So, look inward. If you're a morning person, then run in the morning. If you prefer chilling in the morning, then run at noon. If you prefer after a day, then run in the evening. Do whatever it takes to get out the door. And I also say for newbies, just try to run for 3 continuous minutes. And I know a lot of the listeners are probably thinking, "Oh, come on, Dean, that's not even the beginning of a workout." But for someone who's just getting off the couch, running 3 continuous minutes is tough. What they typically do is they blast out, and after a minute, they're gassed, and they start walking. So I say to people, now that the goal is to be gassed, at 2:59 and cross that 3-minute threshold, and then work up to 5 minutes, and then 15 minutes. And if you can run 15 continuous minutes, then try to run a 5K, 3.1 miles. Then, get a tracking device and go for a 5K and build from there.
You know what I've been doing? The guys at True Form sent me one of their treadmills. I don't know. Have you seen that treadmill? It's not electric.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's curved. It's an awesome treadmill, and they sent me one to the house. And sometimes when I'm jammed up and I don't have time to get outside, I'll use my rope machine, which you could kind of see behind me, and then I'll end it. This morning I ended up with the treadmill, and you could literally just do 5 minutes. I did 5 minutes as hard as I could, breathing through my nose this morning. Ended it with a cold shower after doing the rope climb, and that was powerful.
Hey, it's funny you mentioned nose breathing because I've been experimenting with nose breathing, and it's a whole nother dimension. I've been doing HIIT training just through the nose. Man, Joe, it's tough.
It's tough. It really does. The ancient Spartans, this. The kids they'd be forced to run like a 10-mile run with water in their mouth, and so they only could breathe through the nose, and then they had to spit the water out at the end of the run to show the elders that they didn't quit along the way. And so when I'm doing it, I say to myself, shit, these young kids were doing 10 miles with water in their mouth. So anybody out there listening, watching this, go out and try, even if it's a minute. Try some nose breathing. It's super healthy, and it's the reason we have noses, was to breathe through them. What should people eat when they go running?
I think people, my daily diet these days, I say if I can't pick it from a tree or dig it from the earth or catch it with my hands, I don't eat it. So nothing processed and refined, nothing in a bag. One of my mentors was a guy named Jack LaLanne. You ever remember that guy?
Very, very.
Yeah, he said to me, Dean, if man makes it, don't eat it. and if it tastes good, spit it out. So I just go for unprocessed food, straight from the earth.
I love it. When my boys come to live with you for a week, you could teach them that. It's hard for kids, right? Because I've restricted a lot of junk from my kids, and then kids, the fear is kids then chase the junk because they haven't been allowed to have it. So hopefully you could talk some sense into them, so it's not just crazy dad.
It'll Yeah, it'll come back around, Joe. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, and my kids, they thought I was God, and then they discovered, other pantries of their friends, and the stuff that was in there, and then they rebelled. They thought it was crazy to force this healthy food down their throats. But now that they're older, they've come full circle. So it's been good to watch
Yeah.
that.
And what about during a run? What do you recommend people drink and eat?
I'm a big fan of nut butter. So I like nut butters when I'm running long distances. I use Hammer Nutrition products, which I believe in. I'm sponsored by Hammer Nutrition, so I use their products, but they're really great products. They have a product called Heed, which is a great electrolyte and carbohydrate replenishment. So I use Heed, and sometimes I eat food. Bananas are pretty good on the long run, but I think listen to everyone, follow no one. Whatever works for you, go with it.
I like that. And what about training outside of running? What do you recommend people do? Should they do burpees? Should they do some pull-ups? What should they do?
Yeah, I primarily do body weight. I've got a set of dumbbells that I use a couple days a week, but primarily body weight. And I've got a routine that's about 12 to 14 minutes long of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, chair dips, and burpees. So to go through that whole routine it's about 12 to 14 minutes, and I do it maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or even 6 times a day. And these are just micro bursts, in between. Like I did one right before this interview, and maybe after lunch I'll do another one, then a couple more this afternoon.
I love it. I love it. So you could squeeze it in, so nobody could complain and say, "Oh, I don't have time to do this," or "I don't have weights," or "I don't have a gym membership." You could do it in a closet.
Yeah, I do actually. And the other thing is I like having deadlines stacked up against me because it kind of gives you like, okay, I got 15 minutes before this next call. I got to get it done. It kind of forces you to take action and do it.
I love it. And for anybody wondering if it works, you got to see Dean. He looks like he's 30 years old and ripped. The guy is fit. So micro bursts in the closet work. And don't eat anything that tastes good or is in a box. I love it. Craziest story ever running. Give us the crazy story.
Yeah, so I mean, in this book, I talk about I ran across America one time. I ran from LA to New York City, and it was 75 days of running like 40 to 50 miles a day. But I was getting into the Washington D.C. area, and I get a call from someone, and this person says, "Hey, there's an individual at the White House that wants to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, right. What's this person's name?" And they said, "Well, her name is Michelle." And I said, I was thinking Michelle like a chef in the kitchen or like a security detail. And she says, "Well, her last name is Obama. Like her name's Michelle Obama. Do you know who this is, Dean?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been running for 65 days, but I know who Michelle Obama is." So Joe, I was literally running down Pennsylvania Avenue, and the entrance to the White House opens, and this guy with this, this AK sees me. He's like, "Hey, Carno, come right in this way." And I literally run into the White House, like down the hallway of the White House. And Michelle Obama's press secretary is standing there. She said she's out there on the South Lawn waiting for you. So I hang a left and I run out to the South Lawn, and there's Michelle Obama standing there, and she sees me and she opens her arms and she's like, "It's such an honor to meet you." And I'm like, "Hold it." Did she just say that? Seriously? And next thing I know, I'm hugging Michelle Obama. So that was a pretty wild experience. I talk about it in the book.
That's a great one. That's a great story. I thought you'd have something not as powerful as that. That's unbelievable that they reached out. And did you get involved in her what was it, Let's Move or Just Move program?
Yeah, she like did a talk and made me like an honorary member, and we had a bunch of kids come from local schools, and she brought out some healthy food for them, and yeah, it was a pretty memorable afternoon.
What are we going to do about the kids, Dean? The kids are just, I got a video of one of our Spartan races in China this morning. We get sometimes 25,000 kids to our events in China. And I don't get that many in the US. And you see these kids and you start thinking, gee, this country is just not where it used to be relative to everybody else in the world. JFK had that amazing program for kids in this country. And now it's don't move is the message our kids are getting. What are we going to do?
Joe, I mean, that's a tough one to answer. And I think it's a societal wide issue. And, to me, kids are really quick to spot hypocrisy. So a parent has got to lead by example. I mean, parents come up to me all the time and they say, hey, little Johnny doesn't exercise and he doesn't eat well. What should I do? And I kind of got to ask them the hard question. Well, do you exercise and do you eat well? Because, you don't think kids look at you, but you're their biggest role model. So we need to get more adults, moving and exercising. And also, your events are fun. Like, again, if you build it, they will run. Kids naturally love to run and to play. So let's make working out like play, like a Spartan race. And kids are going to show up and they're going to love it and they're going to tell their friends. So, I really applaud what you've done. And I hope it grows like that in the U.S.,
No, we're doing it. I'm pushing, and I love it. If you, what was it? If you love it, they will run. What's the saying you have?
If you build it, they will run.
They'll run. I like that. I like that. Hey, let's end this thing with how do we get the book, and what are 3 things people should do every day to get a runner's high?
One, you can get the book on Amazon or at any other bookseller. So thanks for asking, and I think you'll enjoy the book. I mean, I tell people just read the first sentence, and so many people have said to me, like, I was going to read a chapter or 2 before bed, and 6 hours later, I read the page. So it's pretty propulsive, and hopefully it draws you right in. But what 3 things should people do to get a runner's high? Breathe through your nose. Try that. Run really hard and really fast. Even if it's a short duration, really push it. And then finally, I would say, run with your heart, not your legs.
3 bits of amazing advice. Dean Karnazes, our favorite runner. I've got to send you a link, Dean. We're building a 25-foot high, rusted, ancient Spartan helmet to be placed in Sparta, Greece. It's going to be unbelievable. We're going to get you involved in that project. Anybody who wants to reach out to Dean, how do they find you?
Someone said the other day that if you Google Dean, I'm the first Dean that comes up. So I'm not hard to find. I've got a website. I'm on social media, obviously. So just Google Dean and you can find me.
You're awesome. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up Podcast. Spartan Up is your partner in resilience for mind, body, and spirit. We're here 3 days every week. Tuesdays, you can find Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan, interviewing biohackers, business leaders, authors, and athletes. Thursdays and Saturdays, catch episodes from our DECA, Endurance, Trail, Combat, and La Ruta series. Do you know someone who needs a little nudge? Maybe they could use some motivation, tactics to be stronger, healthier, happier, more successful. Tell them about our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to know who's watching and who's listening. Thanks. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by the Exogen Ultrasound Bone Healing System. If you or a loved one has a broken bone, talk to your doctor about Exogen. Exogen is indicated for the healing of non-union fractures and for accelerating the healing of certain acute fractures with no contraindications. To learn more, visit exogen.com. EXOGEN.com.